So we've come up from Steubenville now, as you can tell from my accent, Drew. You know, not originally from
really
Ohio.
solid Ohio accent. Yeah.
Yeah, not from Texas. So I always say I'm a hobbit
Okay.
because essentially I've spent most of my life in a shire of one form or another.
Awesome.
And in fact, where we last lived in England, it was in the Shrewsbury Diocese,
Okay.
which has got, amongst other places, probably the setting of the Wrekin for where Weathertop was actually based in Lord of the Rings. And
awesome.
the parish we went to was a parish where J.R. Tolkien went.
Really?
As a server, yeah, the oratory in Birmingham.
Oh, wow.
So we're very fortunate, really. So right from the kind of the heart of England like that.
Wow.
So it's been really...
So when you're reading Lord of the Rings, you're just picturing home, and that's a pretty accurate depiction of what he was probably thinking about.
It really is.
Yeah.
The Shire, I know it was filmed in New Zealand. They
Right.
did a pretty good job of picturing what it would be like in kind of rural parts of England.
Sure.
So
That's awesome.
So really that's my background, is sort of rural England.
Okay.
Raised in Canterbury.
Awesome.
And raised originally as a Baptist. I know that you're a convert, Drew.
Mm-hmm.
So originally raised a Baptist in a really, really wonderful Baptist church. A very fine pastor and very welcoming and with solid Christian parents and home.
Awesome.
So,
that's phenomenal.
You know, so a great upbringing. And I've been on a very, very long journey really to Catholicism. And I feel I'm still on it very much. You know, funnily enough, when you become Catholic finally, I'm not sure you have entered so much as you've begun an entry.
Right.
You know, that's in a way one of the things that really attracted me to Catholicism, that it's you feel you're entering the mystery. You know,
yeah.
That's the whole sense. There's a fullness there which has attracted you, and you know you haven't exhausted it at the moment you've come in.
Right.
And I think, funnily enough, if I was to try and identify why I was lacking in some kind of satisfaction with being a Protestant, I think it would be just because I was looking for that sense of journey into fullness, I suspect. And I'm not sure that I could see how the Baptists did it.
Right.
You know, I couldn't quite. Anyway, now I teach Catechetics and evangelization at Franciscan University, which is an amazing place to be. It's got a faculty just of 8 professors teaching this, you know, which is unlike anywhere in the world, I think, that has such a kind of consolidation and a history of handing on the faith. Before that, back in England, I've spent all my adult life really teaching Catholicism in one form or another.
Okay.
So I began at a small college in Oxford, teaching Catholic social ethics and some philosophy. And I then went on and taught in a place called Maryvale Institute.
Okay.
Which was, again, an amazing grace. I was there 21 years. And it was the first home physically given to Cardinal Newman when he became Catholic.
Oh, wow.
So they gave him this place, he named it Maryvale House, Mary in the Valley, then he named it Maryvale. And he lived there and he founded the oratory from there.
Okay.
So it was lovely being in the house. You just touched the banisters, you know, and you know you're touching this kind of relic. This is the room Newman would have slept in, so can I sleep in that bed?
Right, that's amazing.
It's the same bed, it's the same room, you know. So
close enough,
there's a lovely sense. I mean, I'm sure you feel the same, Drew. Again, isn't it a wonderful sense of just being surrounded by sacred history?
It is,
absolutely. That's in a way one of the great gifts of the Catholic Church.
And I'm sure over there, you know, across the pond in England, even more so, probably upon converting, you have a deeper appreciation of, you know, not just your English history, but realizing the roots of that probably go further back than, you know, like Elizabethan periods and the Reformational period. There's probably a depth to that. And seeing all of those places that go back, I mean, all the way to Canterbury, right? And the early periods of the, you know, Catholicism coming there. So.
Yeah, no, you did. And I was raised on a very small road called Pilgrims Way, which was part of the original Pilgrims Route, which really took off. That Pilgrims Route took off after Thomas à Becket was murdered by the knights under King Henry's apparent command or wish that he should be, you know, got rid of in some way. And after his death, he became a kind of martyr figure. Lots of miracles sprang up in the cathedral, and it became a pilgrimage.
Oh, wow.
sight, really, in a big way.
So in a way, you were almost destined for a conversion.
I was, the Catechism says we're created in a state of journeying, and I almost feel, God was very good to me. He put me in a pilgrim place, with that sense
it's providential,
of, you need to be ready to move.
Right.
I just finished reading a book, actually, a really interesting book by somebody called Eric Varden, called The Shattering of Loneliness. And it's about the importance of memory in the Christian life. And one of the things, he's got a whole chapter on remember Lot's wife, which I'd never really noticed before, that Jesus says that at one point, remember Lot's wife. And he's written a very interesting chapter on it. But it really is about the importance of being able to deal with your own past well. And not looking back in the wrong way. You become the pillar of salt.
Right, you get stuck in.
You get stuck in your past, and I do think that's. I recognize the temptation myself, and I think every time one moves, Newman wrote this book called Loss and Gain. About conversion. There is always loss and there's always gain. And we can get very attached to the loss, a bit like the Israelites, chuntering through the desert, and wishing they had the onions from Egypt.
We have some kids going wild upstairs. If anyone can hear that, that's
is that beautiful?
It is. It's beautiful.
This is life is going on.
Yeah.
This is how conversation should take place in the midst of family life.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's just wonderful. Yeah, so the yearning for the garlics of Egypt, that's something which one always has to let go of, however good the move forward is. And I can see that in my own life. One lives in a half converted state, but always trying to put the promise before the past.
Right. Yeah. One's converted, always converting. You're always going deeper and realizing how much. Well, you might have come this far, and then you look back and you go, wow, we still have so far to go that you didn't even know of. And if you had seen that at the beginning, maybe it would have been a daunting first step.
All those giants waiting for us in the promised land. I think I'll stay in the desert a bit longer,
Yeah, right.
So,
absolutely.
Yes, that's right. So it's good God doesn't show us the future.
Right.
He just promises us.
Yeah, as much as we might want to see it. And
Yes.
It's best in his hands. That's for certain.
It's best in his hands. Yeah.
Wow.
So and in Catechetics, I think I'm sure you read the Catechism like me, and it's one of my best loved books, the Catechism itself.
I love it. Yeah.
And in the beginning of the prologue, one of the important things for all preaching and teaching, which we always say, but I've only realized recently just how important it is. It's in the Catechism, paragraph 25. They take a pastoral principle from the Catechism of the Council of Trent and say, this is the one we want to use still. And it's teaching to the love that never ends. So all the doctrinal teaching you do should be directed to the love, which presumably is eternity. In other words, you direct all your teaching, you somehow show it's part of that. And I've realized, gosh, isn't it important to be able to teach about heaven well? To be able to teach about, the future well, God's promises well, because that really is the motivational force in the Christian life. We're always drawn... from the conversion, there's something exciting you're moving into. You're
Absolutely.
Going to be part of.
Yeah. Something much bigger than you. I think that was a big part of it for me was I found, in when I studied theology, that initial journey into knowing nothing about the Bible and nothing about Christianity to feeling like something, a little bit at least, was really enticing. But then you get to a point, or at least I got to a point where there wasn't a very high challenge to continue. There wasn't a very high challenge to continue growing. There was a lot of emphasis on initially becoming a Christian and starting that walk, but there wasn't a ton of emphasis, at least in the evangelical streams I was a part of deepening that discipleship in a mature way, So I started to realize there was, and I don't want to overgeneralize, but there was a pattern of people who had entered and were zealous, but were kind of in a stasis of the same level of development, the same level of intellectual knowledge, but also of spiritual depth, right? They hadn't had a deepening formation. And that's what launched me into, once I encountered Anglicanism, like, oh, there's a lot of depth here, and the rule isn't restrictive like some might think or might say it is, but it's actually beneficial and it's deepening and it's formational, right? And then ultimately Catholicism, more than that, yeah, it's just like you've said, it's endless. And upon entering it, you're like, uh-oh, there's 2,000 years just of like papal encyclicals to sift through, sure, if you so desire. And then all the spiritual traditions. Really Catholicism internally is perhaps every bit as broad as Protestantism, but still unified, which was really attractive to me because it was never ending, you might know a thing or two about theology, but your personal practice and your personal discovery and integration of it is a lifelong thing.
Yeah, sure. I really agree with that. So that sense of the danger of plateauing, though I couldn't have said it like that. Mm-hmm. I think, you kind of know in a sense your life is bigger than, and this is why I'm so cautious about saying anything, a bit like you in a way, objectively about Protestantism in one sense. I still read, for example, Oswald Chambers.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
My utmost for his highest. And I just think, wow, this man, I feel this is, in so many ways, he's so far ahead of me. Mm-hmm. And my theology is only as large as I am. I really get this. I know Catholicism is the largest thing I could possibly want to belong to. Mm-hmm. I know that, and I knew, like you, I'm attracted to that sense of the awe-inspiring mystery of the whole. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I do know that I'm limited in my perception of what it is I've entered into.
Right.
And I'm continually being surprised by the size of it.